Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight, I have the man from the great Midwest himself, the Milwaukee man, RDV. Tonight, we're discussing Scream 5, Scream 2022, Scream, however the hell they're putting it out there. And being a huge Scream fan, thinking it's one of the best movies and one of the better franchises when Wes Craven started it. We've got a lot to talk about here, RDV, because for me, I think the original Scream walk that fine line of being a bit too self-aware and goofy, and people can say, oh, it's cutting edge, it redefined horror cinema. Well, if you're not scared, it's not really horror, so I don't know if I want to call it that. However, I think Scream is a great film. The music's fantastic. It's infinitely rewatchable. A lot of it has to do with Wes, and unfortunately, Wes, having passed away, really didn't have his hands in this film. So for me, I just will start off by saying, for my initial thoughts, that love Scream. Scream 2, okay, maybe. Scream 3, no. Scream 4, I remember going, hey, this is better than Scream 3 and maybe on par with Scream 2, but well below Scream. And now we've got Scream 5, as I'm going to call it, because to me it's the fifth film. Or as we're told over the head that it's a requel, which I've never heard that term before. I think it's stupid. I did not like some of the things in this film. I think this film was actually, in today's terms, done fairly well. It's done well at the box office, so I think there'll be another film. Um, but it's not good, and I think the people who made this said, "Hey, we're just going to troll the people who like the old one. Screw it, we're young people. We can do whatever the hell we want." So it does not feel like a Scream movie, despite the fact they really stole everything from the template of basically the first movie, and they just flip flop a little stuff. And you and I have talked about that before, how that might work if it's an action film or something, but when they tried to get a little too cute, fuck off. I mean, that's kind of how I felt too. But I thought some of the acting and it was in here was pretty good, especially the lead woman and some other things too. I thought were really good. But obviously, the big FU scene we'll talk about here to me, which has happened about halfway through, let's say. But enough talk from me. Let's hand it over to you for your initial thoughts.
I gotta say, it does. It's one of those movies that really tries to pull on the nostalgia with it. You're like, hey, remember we did this movie back then? We're gonna tell you the same story, but we're gonna change things so it's not exactly the same. That way, we can say we're being creative. Obviously, don't have the same director. The guy who originally created the magic, he's dead. You know, real life. It's not a killer. He's not coming back to kill you. It is. I know this movie made a lot of money, but it's missing what made the first movie great, because there was nothing like it. There was nothing like it before. This is basically the equivalent, as they make fun of it in the movie. It's like Stab 8, calling it Stab. It's still the 8th movie. You know, they do have they made fun of the movie. This exactly how the original movie we did in the beginning, in the first movie. But yeah, so there's a whole running joke about the movie, like little subtle jokes. They make fun of the actual movie and how people die. Like at the very beginning, like, oh, your mom was a fan of Stab, you know. It's like, you know, and I'm trying to remember, what is Stab again, because I didn't really watch all the sequels of these movies, because I stopped at the first one, because why would you go past greatness?
Yeah,
it's. So apparently, I guess Stab. I'm going on a limb here. I'm guessing it's probably they got famous after the first one. One of them decided to make a movie based on their lives, you know, without anyone else's permission, and he became the jaded friend, and they called it Stab. So it's. I'll just say there are some, as much as there is bad with this movie, there is some good. They do have Skeet Ulrich coming in here. Reprising his role, but not in the way you think.
No, I liked it. However, I had a major issue with it, and I need to ask you this because I don't watch Marvel and DC films, generally speaking. I've only seen a few. So the CGI stuff is a real turnoff for me. But did they massively de-age him in the first few scenes? It looked horrible to me, not ghostly or some effect. I thought, what the hell? This is like a 50-cent piece of CGI nonsense. Am I wrong?
I don't know. I've actually seen him. He looks. I don't know if you watch Riverdale, he clean shaves on there too, and he looks like himself. You know, as far as the I don't.
Let's just say when he first shows up, my jaw dropped to the floor. I was like, "What the hell are they doing?" I don't know. It
Yeah,
just looked weird to me. But I
it's
did like his role in there.
yeah, it's still him. Actually, I don't think it was CG as far as that. Throughout the movie, realize remember his character died in the first one. So
He looked as bad as Courtney Cox's face, which we'll definitely get to in a moment because that's disturbing.
whoa. We don't have to go there, bro. That's just below the belt. it's
It's above
like
the belt.
it's like saying like that that coffee is black. Everybody knows that. You don't need to talk about it.
Well,
But that being said, this movie was meant to be black, and they added a crap ton of creamer to it, and they forgot. They realized it's still black. So, man, you get much creamer you want, it's still coffee. You want coffee. I don't want creamer. And this week had too much creamer for me. The main character in here, like, is I believe it's Melissa Barrera. She plays apparently Skeet Ulrich had a daughter.
That's what they're saying.
Understanding. Yeah.
Which to me, I think I made a gross mistake because I've not read anything about it. I thought it would have been, and not having watched the sequels in quite some time, I thought it would have been Nev Campbell's character, Sydney, and him, because remember, she wouldn't have sex with him. And then finally, when they do have relations, that's when she says, "Hey, where were you?" And she starts, whatever. And he's like, "Come on, what are you talking about? We just knocked boots and you're blaming me." And of course, this is the first movie. So if you haven't seen them in a while, it can be a little screwy. But I guess he just went off on his own and had one, which is fine. But I thought, oh, the big thing is it's going to be her daughter, Nev's daughter, in here. And it wasn't, I guess. So I was a little disappointed because I thought, oh, this is kind of a neat turn because it's another reason to bring her in. And they didn't do it. But to your point, yeah, I think she's actually the best thing of this film, really.
Yeah. There's two sisters in here. There's two Carpenter sisters in here. Tara is the one that gets, I believe, she's the one that's attacked in the very beginning.
And unlike Karen, they both eat sandwiches.
But yeah. The opening scene was kind of like, it's.
I thought it was good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I kept thinking though, it's like, as I'm watching this movie, is this gonna be like the original one? We find out there's two killers. Are they gonna go that route? Are they actually gonna be like, you know what? We're gonna make you think that, but there's actually only one killer, or there's three of them.
I agree with you 100% with that. And to me, I thought, I don't know who this girl is in the beginning. I didn't mind it being a ripoff of whatever because it was done well. And some of the stalking killer shots in here are a little bit different. And I did not mind that. I thought that added to it. And I have to say, I know you're not a big gore fan. I am an extreme fan of violence when it's done well and usually not gratuitous. And I think here, the fact that they made a conscious effort to kind of change it up and do some things differently in these stalking scenes for the most part, and the unnecessary level of violence at the end was a positive for the film. And they didn't kill the girl off, so it makes you think, yeah, what are they going to do? They're going to have one killer, they're going to have two, they're going to have three. Is it going to be a girl? We don't know.
The other thing is that they added technology to this. Remember when the first one came out, there was really the cell phone, the flip phone is what they had. Now we have all where the girl shuts up, she's alarm in her house and all stuff. They're talking about cloning people's cell phones, which is a thing now. So they're making, because some people are like, well, I'll just dial them on my cell phone. They're gonna call my landline. Well, okay, whatever. I'll call. But I'm thinking like, well, if this guy is smart enough to like in these shows in the beginning, he's like, well, it's like, here's a video of your friend. He's like, oh, stupid your friend is, like, you're fooling around. I cloned it. So I'm like, okay. I'm thinking like, well, how do we know that he hasn't? Because remember, the original movie was a group of friends. This movie's another group of friends. So I'm thinking back, like, even after this, if the girl gets attacked, I'm thinking like, well, man, even if she tried calling 911, he probably would have seen it because chances are he probably is one of their friends, if it's a guy or a girl, and cloned it. So it's. So they do. I give them credit for that. Taking technology into the factor and actually using it well.
And they addressed it because it's if you're going to do the same thing, well, the world is different now. So what are the constraints, and technology is the big cell phone issue. So I agree with you totally. It started off almost smart. Yeah.
Like I said, and it's eerily because I went in watching this, not know if it was a sequel or if it was a prequel, whatever it was. But I started watching. I'm like, wow, they're really going off the Drew Barrymore thing in the beginning, and then to where they're at the school, the kids are sitting on the exact same benches and all stuff. I'm thinking like, either this is like a legacy movie, or this is it's a soft reboot, and they're just bringing in old characters in.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
It's yeah, and I said the kills to me weren't as unique. I prefer the original kills, the garage door. As dumb as it is, she can skip for it. It's just that thing. It's like you back then when you're watching it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is like, wow, who's the killer? Like, wow, it's obviously Matthew Lillard's character, or is it the kid that works at the video store because he watched so many movies? It's like I'm thinking like it's like how are they gonna do these killings and actually make them still seem like fun? Because as I love as much as cheesy as the first movie was, I had fun watching it. This movie, not so much. I really, I thought like, you know what? I'll give it a shot because we'll do a review on this. People seem to like it. The box office made $134 million on a $24 million budget. But then again, I'm thinking like, well, it could be only because Neil Campbell back. That could be the only reason why they made so much money, because not because of the actual plot. Because to me, the plot. I mean, maybe I'm just cynical and old. I'm 36. 30 and 37 this year. I've seen the
No, it's just Hollywood's run out of ideas.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
to your point, what made it not fun to me was I think that despite the smart opening, the attention, and some of the stuff they paid into it, they failed in what I'm going to say is two main areas. One, which is really simple. They only had like two pieces of music from the original film if they really wanted to kind of goose you. The soundtrack in the first movie is phenomenal. A lot of stuff playing around, a lot of neat songs and stuff. Here, it was just not even a part of it, which is disappointing. In a horror movie, you got to have that set some atmosphere, which they didn't do. But the biggest disappointment I have where this film completely fails is we can talk and go into great detail about political correctness and checking boxes and people in roles on commercials and TVs and how that's being thrown in our faces in every aspect of our lives. All I'm going to simply say here is that I actually appreciated the multicultural and sexual differences in their groups that were not present in the first film or first several films, if you want to think of it like that, except for one brief comment. But to me, they said, okay, we're going to put these people in here. They didn't really do anything with them, and when they tried to, they did them with the wrong person, and they were just there to be there, and they did not add to the story, which sucks, because I thought they were fleshed out enough where if you think every group that age is like that, okay, that's fine. Maybe it is in today's circles, but I thought the fact that you had the lesbian girl that played, she was the female counterpart of the video guy from the first movie. And so I'm like, okay, they're just swapping some things. Okay, that's fine. Maybe it's refreshing that way. And when they pulled everybody together in the room so she could go over what's going on after they got Dewey, which we'll get to in a minute, and goes over everything and talking about Reddit and modernizing, I'm like, okay, this is okay working. But really, I assume he's African American, the boyfriend brother, or her brother, I guess it was, he was somebody I thought just stood out to me and thought you could have really done a little bit more with him, like here, almost playing more like the hero jock, because they did the jock thing that is in no way reminiscent of the 80s kind of jock hero. But they changed it, but it still felt like, okay, he's supposed to be the jock. How are they going to make it a little different? And I thought that was kind of cool. And he just had charisma and personality. Everybody else was just kind of flat, and intentionally so for at least one of the friends. But yeah, I thought they completely failed on this. And then, of course, they kill off Dewey's partner. It was Heather Graham from the fourth film in a shocking manner. The way they did that, and they teased you, I thought was done well. But whether it's believable or not, it's a whole nother issue. So that's the whole problem, is this movie's got some hit and some misses because they really don't know what the hell they're doing. They're slapping a bunch of crap together. But I will say this. With Dewey, I just think we need to address it. If you don't want to give spoilers out or anything like that, let's talk about Dewey, because when he came on screen, I honestly thought, you know what? I like Sydney. She was, obviously the hero. Courtney Cox's face, I'll try not to be too mean about it. I think she acted very well in this film. Her delivery, the physical way she delivered her lines, the way her voice sounds was phenomenal, on point. I felt like they were both in there. I liked them buddying up. But I felt myself going, I kind of like the main girl in here, but I was rooting for Dewey. That's the problem I have with this movie. I want to root for Dewey, nobody else. What's your take on the whole way Dewey was used?
Dewey brought in as like I said, like he's brought in to basically like we need someone who is like from the original movie, someone who's been through it all, who is a former cop, and and basically as I think he's more like comic relief to me. Like he's the
He came
person
in to
like
do the job
yeah, came in to
and
do the
need
job.
baby.
He's like, you need someone to protect you. Well, I'm here. I've been through this. I've been stabbed 9 times and all that stuff. And all like, dang, kids need me, so I'm gonna step up. So it's like I'm thinking like this guy Dewey is gonna he's gonna get killed right away, or he's gonna and like the one kid actually said he's like, well, how do we know you're not the killer? It's like you have
Yeah.
the most revenge. Your girlfriend, your wife left you and stuff. I'm thinking like, oh my god, imagine if Dewey actually was the killer in this one. And like he's just like that would just really totally change from everything like you expecting. It goes, I'm expecting like Joey said, he's there to set
It would
basically.
have been so much better.
Yeah, they made Dewey into the basically the video store guy from the first movie. They just said like, oh, this is what usually happens in scary movies and all that stuff. This is what goes on. See, this is what you can't do. This is what you're supposed to, and it's probably your lover. And the funny thing is like, so they purposely put Dewey in there to throw you off and everything. And the fact that he actually names the killer. He actually says who the killer is. But in the very beginning, but people miss that. So when you see towards the end, it's like, oh, wait, Dewey was right this whole entire time. It's like I never would have expected that. I'm thinking like, well, I based on who the girl is dating, I kind of want to. I would just either he's a killer or I want him dead. Jack Quaid. Jack Quaid, he's great on The Boys, but he looks like the creeper kind of person. And I was wondering, like, are they gonna play to that? Because he does look creepy in the way he acts in this film. He's overprotective.
Now, this was her boyfriend, right? From
Yeah,
because she
yes,
was living out of Woodsboro, and they were
yeah,
both working at was it a bowling alley? I guess I don't
yeah,
even
yeah,
remember.
yeah.
Okay, you know what his problem was, and it's like we older guys like to say, "Don't be a nice guy." Nice
It was
guys
overly
finish last.
nice.
Whatever you want. They tried making him being thoughtful because see, guys are not men in movies at all today. So I was wondering honestly. Okay, here we have a woman that's not being pushy. She doesn't seem to have a feminist bent about her with an attitude or whatever. And despite all the different representations we had in this film, I thought, okay, well, guys are made to not be masculine or take the lead and supposed to follow the women. This is a very female-centric film, which wasn't as good as the first film with Nev, to be honest, especially considering the times. But the lead lady here, she didn't come across as pushy or bitchy or having an attitude. And so she grew on me because at first I was like, okay, whatever, kind of pretty face, whatever, whatever. But I thought she got better as the movie went on. And Nev was not in there that much, or Courtney, they were in there enough, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
they were fine. They were very subdued. So she grew on me. And then she's with this guy, and this guy, it's like, it's one thing to be thoughtful or be polite or to be a southern gentleman or have manners or whatever you want to call it. And there's some differences there. But as soon as he came on screen, first of all, he looked like Pacey from Dawson's Creek, and I couldn't get that in my head through the whole film. And I thought, is this Pacey's kid? And I don't think it is. But his delivery and the way he looked, especially the side profile, I was like, Jesus Christ, come on, what's going on here? And at first thought, I said, oh, that's him, and it was just too obvious. And I thought, well, who else is it going to be? And that's why I was almost rooting it would be either Dewey or like a couple chicks, or she did it to herself, or whatever, something stupid, because the lead girl early on, we see that she's self-medicates. We find out why later,
Yeah.
which I really enjoyed that because
Yes.
you get to a point where they're all pointing at each other. And I didn't realize it till the end because the way it was filmed, it sucked. The whole house in the first movie where it was shot was an
Yep.
awesome setting with the sun going down when Sydney gets off the bus and they're playing this music and she's on the phone. It's the creepiest scene in the film. It's hard to explain, but it really grows on you. And then, of course, she gets attacked in the evening. And they're supposed to, I guess, be back there. And we find out why at the end. But they didn't use that to its advantage and play for it. It took me a while to go, oh, I think this is the exact same house. When everything was over and they pulled out, I'm like, oh my God. It just, they used the first film to support what they wanted to do in this film. I don't think they really honor it that way. And what you said at the beginning, I think is absolutely true. They just kind of, in my words, I'm going to say they trolled the watcher of the film. And it was kind of like an FU, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we can do whatever we want. And it was disappointing that they were so blatant about it with the side characters. But if they just focused on the main lady. And I guess if they try to relaunch it, they might have something. But it was just disappointing with Dewey because, to your point, he came in and he did the job, and it pissed me off because I'm like, I don't know who I really want to root for right now.
Yeah, and it's funny that this took place in the original her house. And I was laughing because I was like, okay, didn't we just see this in another movie with a slasher where they fought in the childhood home? That was Halloween Kills, if I'm not correct, mistaken. They actually fought in the actual her house, and that's where it ends in that house. Like I said, I love the whole Billy Loomis thing in here. You find out like, oh, that's her dad. Holy crap,
that was good.
Yeah, I was like, dude, that's actually cool. And I said, I don't think it was CG when you see him, especially when she's you tell right now when she's driving the car, you can tell that's definitely him. Real right now.
It surprised me. It surprised me because she's on medication. So we're saying, is she just imagining it? Is she the one doing it? Because again, they're sisters, and she's a little bit older, and she left town, and we find out why, and it works.
And he's telling her like
in the film.
He's I love how he's harassing. He's like, kill. He's like, okay, wait, is she the killer? And you see this, even the killers in here, the killers. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna be able to how many there are, or if there's but they try to frame her, and it doesn't work.
At the end, when everybody conveniently gets together, because the younger sisters, who's we see at the very beginning, has an asthma inhaler and she needs it. It's whatever. I mean, that pretty much sealed the deal for me. Thinking thinking about one of the killers, and I still thought there'd be a second, just because it would take a little bit of effort for them to try to be a little bit more creative. I did like how in the third act, I have to say this, I was mildly impressed because in this film, it's brutal. And we can joke about people getting stabbed and killed or whatever in horror movies, because really, frankly, since the late 70s, early in the 80s, we've got desensitized to it. It's not done tastefully enough. More is not always better. And in this case, here they went more than what they typically do in the films. But for some reason, the way they shot it and captured the spatters and the way it was very violent and graphic, and that really stood out. I have to give them credit for it. I think that was probably one of the best things about the film, is that if they focused on brutality being a part of humanity, like with her and all that, they could have went somewhere that way, but they just tried so hard, I think, to just go, well, we're just going to put a few things together, and if they shut their mouth, they probably would have done even better. But the whole idea of what it turns out to be when we find out who another killer is, it's exactly what we were told earlier in the film, and it's like, really? That is so limp and lame.
And if you're gonna have a killer, I want them to be super like Billy Loomis was. He was really cuckoo puffs. Matthew Lillard's character was crazy too. He wasn't listening like the killer who it is, the one killer. I'm not gonna say any more than that. Mm-hmm. That person did not really sell it to me, and it just felt weak because I'm like, that's the killer. Oh, okay, that's all right.
You know what I thought of too? You know what I yelled at my screen when I saw I think who you're talking about?
Yeah.
And I got it wrong because I think it's election, but I went ginger snaps. and anybody that knows this film knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Like, no matter who the killer is, when they show at the end, there was no emotion. There was no believe. I want insane kind of just kind of laughing. This I'm gonna kill you. I want that stuff. It's like it's like it was just like, okay, or it's just gonna replace.
It's like,
no, I didn't.
Okay, you got a butcher knife. I've been stabbed or whatever. I'm sitting here. I'm probably gonna die, and I'm looking at it going, I don't see the threat. I don't feel it once you've revealed it. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Because I said Skeet Ulrich, man, was a creepy guy, dude. When you first saw him, and then Matthew Lillard, you can't top Matthew Lillard. This is why I say the first movie is the best movie, and it's the only movie you need in Scream. You don't need any of the other movies at all. You know,
And I feel
it's to me, it's as dumb as like, I know what you did last summer. I still know what you did. I still even know, and he knows too. It's like, what? No, I understand you want sequels, but it's like, at that point, you better up the ante. If you're gonna do that, make it even more like crazy. Like, yeah, we just saw this one. We're gonna make this one even better. But it always seems with sequels and they do the movies, it gets worse and worse. They lose the plot. And it's to the point where it's just like, oh, we're just gonna throw a half thing in there and that's it.
And the thing too is in the 80s, if you got sequelitis, they'd at least say, especially if it was a B movie, yeah, we're going to give you some, TNA, some hot ass, whether it's, teenager or adult or like that. We're going to give you a boob shot, a bush shot, a guy's butt shot, and, whatever. We know that you want it. We've got to put it in here. And that's fine, whatever, you like. And it doesn't have to be deep or whatever. And the Friday the 13th films were by no means scary or whatever, but we knew what the template was. So we kind of knew what to expect and we enjoyed, relaxing, having some popcorn and the different variations they would do it. Now, some people are offended by that, and I'm not saying it's a good film, but we're being good and entertaining and making money are all different things. And I'm a little conflicted with Scream because in today's movie making world, it's an average to slightly above average film to me. There's some pluses in here, but there's definitely some minuses. And the only minusing thing to me was the writers using the characters to kind of explain. We're trying not to give it all away here. We're trying to explain why the killers did what they did and making fun of people who like to watch movies and stuff. And I think that's a shot at the old guard like myself who really likes the first one and all that, because I think younger people today think, well, we've got technology, we've got creativity, we've got $10 coffees. We can go and sit down on our Apple iPad and we can create a movie better than any of what you guys for. You have no idea what you're doing because, well, we're millennials, we're Gen Z, we're Gen Y, we're what, and it's just it's young people thinking they know what the hell they're doing. They really don't.
It came off to me like a here's the killer. It's a Zoomer. What? Oh. You don't understand me. It's like, and it's like, it's just the whole thing is like, society made me do this. It's like, no, that's not how it works. It's.
Well, I'll say this for my final thoughts before passing it over. The whole thing with this film is that you mentioned Halloween Kills. Halloween, the original, is one of my favorites. I've always pumped it up, and now with the whole new generation of people seeing all the films, and everyone says, well, we can't talk about the Rob Zombie one because that sucked. At least he tried to do something and had a vision in the first one, whether you agreed with what he was trying to do or not. And it was a Rob Zombie film with the Halloween character in it. I'm saying that here. This was not a Scream film. It was a film that had the Scream character in it and some other ones. Unfortunately, they don't know what the hell they're doing with it. And when I think about Halloween Kills, though, and the recent ones, even though Carpenter allegedly gave his blessing, which just means, I'll be fine collecting a paycheck until I die from, smoking too much. The Halloween Kills is one of the worst movies in a really long time. And I was offended by it. I really, really was offended. And I know I'm going to be more offended by the third film, which I'm not going to bring up now why or how, but when we talk about it, we'll watch it and we'll give it whatever. But it was so insulting. I was shocked based after the first one that was mildly watching despite how they reimaged it. So Scream, I thought, well, it's not as offensive as the first Halloween from 2018, I think it was. And there were some ways they could go in here, but with Halloween Kills and just how much of a massive drop off there is, I with the next Scream movie, which I just assume there's going to be one. I hope it's not like that too, because I still almost have hope, and I know better than to have that at my age. That hope's one of the worst things you can have in faith when it comes to these things. But it's by far much better than Halloween Kills. However, that's really not saying much. But it's worth watching, especially if you like the franchise, because there's enough in here that is different from the first film. Honestly, what's your final thoughts? Your take?
My final thought is this is their way of getting rid of the old crowd. This is saying, hey, people from who watched in the 90s, this is the new one. You don't like it, you can go somewhere else because it's going to stay around. This is the new generation. This is, if you watch the TV series, Scream TV series, you get the same feeling. It says like, okay, so and they might as well just killed off Courtney Cox and killed off Neve Campbell too as well, because that's what I felt like when you kill off Dewey, man. Yeah, I was like, too. I was like, you killed off Dewey, but you leave the other two alive. Like, well, what for? No, come back for the next movie so we get some more nostalgia. More people, no, you don't. You got
Well,
me
just
coming
kill
to
off the
watch
guy
this.
characters because women aren't going to get hurt. Really?
That's another thing too. I was surprised. Like, I thought there would have been like more deaths in this movie, more creative stuff. And the more I go over the original movie, the soundtrack it really helped out a lot. You know, you got the Blue Oyster Cult there, "Don't Fear the Reaper," a new take on that song.
Yep.
So it's like, wow, it's like I never thought about that. No, you can hear the
School's
lyrics.
out. Alice
I heard
Cooper.
when the first movie came out, what, 97,
96.
96. I was
Mhm.
I was 11 years old when it came out. So I heard the soundtrack first because my sister had the CD and stuff. So I was like, oh, this is kind of cool soundtrack. And then like later, a couple of years later, I watched the movie, like, when I was like 16. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually like a good movie. I was like, a good soundtrack and everything. I was like, the soundtrack is even great too. It's like, you don't even have to watch the movie. You can just listen to the soundtrack. And that's the thing is like from today's movies is the soundtracks. The soundtracks don't really, they may throw a random song in there, but it's like, it's not like the same as it was back then. So, and I don't know. Well, we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll make another movie. Maybe this time Sydney will bite it. You know.
Nev Campbell's aged well, and I avoided Courtney Cox's face. All I'm going to simply say is, it was bad in Scream 4, and it's not helping you out. So this over reliance on total reconstruction is not the way to go for a lot of these older women or men, for that matter. It's a tough thing, and I understand Hollywood and the money to be made is a big deal, but it's just again, maybe Loomis wasn't de-aged. Maybe it's just the way I saw it, but it felt like it was really gross. And then her face looked just as bad. And I like Courtney Cox. I liked her character, and I thought them being buddies in here worked well too. So I'm curious as if there will be in the last film, or if in the next film, if there is one, because they certainly would have to be. I would think, they could be in one more film each, and then they could kill them off, and then they wouldn't have anybody left. I think, unless they make somebody up. So. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Scream 5. Watchable, questionable. It's sort of there. You could definitely do a lot worse in today's movies, but for older movies and other things that we check out what we've covered here on the Extreme Movie Show, from classics to horror to sci-fi to customer requests. We definitely take care of those too. We're going to be doing Rocky 4 next Sunday as we continue reviewing the Rocky franchise. The most over-the-top non-Rocky movie there is, and some find it most entertaining, and it'll be interesting to discuss the pros and cons of it as we work our way through too, because we're not stopping here, we're going the whole way. Check out our Twin Peaks episode that's going to be dropping here soon. We're finishing up season 3 with Professor Pixel, the young 20-something millennial, watching it for the very first time. I had no idea what the hell it was a year ago when we started. That will drop on the 24th, which, as you Blue Roy's agents know, is Twin Peaks Day. What were you going to say, RDV?
I was going to say, for the next Rocky, there's no easy way out.
There's no shortcut home, as they fall and going to Woodsboro.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go, Mr. Tepper. I I didn't know that David was here with me singing. All right. There you go, guys. Have a good night. As always, thanks for listening, and stay extreme. Extreme.
What's your favorite scary movie?